6 weeks of voting in an election where India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeks a third term. Opponents say repression and sectarianism have worsened under his leadership. So what are the issues? Will the election be free and fair? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami, Zeidan. It's a mammoth undertaking with nearly 1 billion people eligible to vote. India is holding its parliamentary election as Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeks a third consecutive term. Well, the first of 7 phases began on Friday and will last into June. So the election won't be quick, but will it be free and fair? Well, Modi's opponents and rights groups have accused him of cracking down on dissent, an allegation his BJP denies. We'll ask our guests about this shortly and how important this vote is for India and for the rest of the world. Before we start, I want to mention the Indian government has failed to give visas to Al Jazeera's correspondents to cover the story, so we're covering the election from outside the country. Imogen Kimber has this report.
Nearly 1 billion Indians are voting in national polls, with thousands of candidates vying for a seat in Parliament. Prime Minister Narendra Modi from the governing BJP is seeking a third term in office. The opposition is a coalition of different parties, led by the once powerful National Congress Party. The BJP says its success is built on economic growth, welfare schemes, and Modi's personal popularity. But his opponents say it comes at the cost of democracy and say the elections are neither free nor fair.
There's no democracy in India today. The idea that India is the world's largest democracy, it's a lie. It's a complete lie. 20% of India votes for us, and we are not able to pay 2 rupees for anything. Right? And it has been orchestrated to cripple us in the elections.
The accusations are firmly rejected by the BJP.
Modi's hard work and diligence, being a truthful person and with the support of God and serving people, makes him not only the head of the country, but a respected leader in the world today.
Modi has been accused of promoting Hindu nationalism in a country that's supposed to be a secular state. Amnesty International reported last month that a crackdown by the BJP on peaceful dissent and opposition has reached a crisis point. It says a range of financial and terrorism laws have been used to repress the political opposition, media, activists and human rights defenders. Journalists say the once diverse media landscape has been suppressed.
Traditionally, media was a voice of the opposition, but now the media is glorifying the government and making fake news for that purpose.
The National Congress Party had been in power for more than 50 years, but Modi accuses them of standing for corruption and nepotism. Opinion polls suggest the BJP is firmly in the lead, but there's a long road ahead. The huge election will take 6 weeks to conclude, ending on the 1st of June, with the results expected a few days later. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Well, before we get into the discussion, let's take a closer look at the mechanics of the election. Well, as we mentioned, nearly 1 billion people are registered to vote. Voters will cast their ballots in 7 phases at 1 million polling stations until early June. There are 543 seats in the Lok Sabha or lower house of parliament. A party needs a simple majority of 272 seats to govern. India's 28 states will decide whether to extend the rule of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's BJP. Well, Modi was first elected 10 years ago. He was re-elected in 2019 after the highest voter turnout in India's history. The BJP's main challenger is the Indian National Congress. The party's governed for much of the 77 years since independence. Modi is accused of silencing his critics and cracking down on independent media. India has fallen 21 places in the annual World Press Freedom Index. And India's 200 million Muslims say they've been persecuted under the BJP's Hindu nationalist policies. The BJP denies it discriminates against Muslims and other minorities. Well, let's bring in our guests. They're all joining us from India today. We have joining us from Bengaluru, Mohan Krishna, a spokesperson for the governing Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP. In Chandigarh, Arshpreet Khadial, spokesperson for the opposition Indian National Congress. And in New Delhi, Sravasti Dasgupta, a reporter for The Wire who specialises in Indian politics. A warm welcome to all of you. If I could start with Sravasti, first of all, in New Delhi. Can the election be accurate? Can it represent the will of the people in an environment where we've seen opposition figures arrested and the Congress party has even had its bank accounts frozen?
That's right. These elections are taking place in what some would say unprecedented circumstances. We've seen over the last few months opposition leaders, 2 chief ministers have been arrested, one from the state of Jharkhand, another from the national capital, New Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, as well as Hemant Soren. And as you yourself mentioned, the accounts of the main opposition party, the Congress party, have also been frozen. And they have said that they have it's not possible for them to fight the elections with the same strength without access to their funds. Now, of course,
so
that
is
matter
is that still free and fair then, Sravasti?
So, yes, questions are being raised whether these elections will be free and fair, but the onus is eventually on the Election Commission of India, which is the poll body in India, and one would hope that they would keep their independence intact, though recent incidents would make one question whether they are acting in the interest of democracy, but one would hope that with the largest democracy going into elections at the moment, the Election Commission will ensure that these elections are fair. But of course, a lot of questions being raised on the Election Commission's role as well, because as we know, recently one of the election commissioners resigned without giving any reason. Then 2 other election commissioners were appointed literally on the eve of the election starting. We've had Prime Minister Narendra Modi very clearly invoking religion in all his speeches, which is a violation of the model code of conduct of the Election Commission of India and constitutes a corrupt practice under the Representation of the People's Act, which governs elections in India. But we've not heard anything from the Election Commission on that front. So we are hoping that in the final exercise of the voting that is underway, that the Election Commission will uphold its mandate to be fair. But past precedents make us a little cautious.
All right, let me take some of those points to Mohan from the BJP. So, as Sravasti mentioned, some of the criticisms about changes in the election and last-minute appointments in the Election Commission. There have been allegations that the BJP is, manipulating state institutions like the Tax Department, the Enforcement Directorate, even the Central Bureau of Investigations. This all add up to a BJP attempt to subvert elections?
Look, one thing I heard very patiently the senior journalist speaking about India's plight today. Let me ask her a simple question. Was it the government which has removed the commissioner? No. He resigned, and on the eve of not on the eve actually, now that the democracy, their opposition and some of the journalists, biased journalists, they speak in such a language that democracy is not there. Mr. Modi, Honorable Prime Minister of the country, Narendra Modi, has made a change. Amendment has been made for appointment of Election Commission. Opposition leader has been included in the committee to appoint the Election Commission, which was not there. Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, successive Congress governments earlier, they appointed election commissioners to their whims and wishes. Today, it is not happening that way. None of the organizations which comes under the central government will be appointed without the consultations of the opposition leader. Then why they talk about the democracy then? The government of India under the Prime Minister Modi has made a lot of changes. The colonial laws have been replaced with the new laws which will suit for the next 100 years. Mr. Narendra Modi has hell-bent upon one thing, to clean the system of politics.
Let's bring in the opposition. Let's bring in Arshpreet then. Does Mohan have a point when he says the opposition also has a long history of election manipulation and corruption scandals?
Number one, the Bharatiya Janata Party's government in today's time has been against democracy, has been against constitution, has been undermining the orders of the Honorable Supreme Court. I'll give you examples how they have been doing that. Number one, you remember that the Honorable Supreme Court had said that the committee that selects the Election Commission of India shall include the Chief Justice of India in that. But the Bharatiya Janata Party brought a law and they circumvented that order of the Honorable Supreme Court. My question to the Bharatiya Janata Party is, what possible problem did you have with the CJI being a part of that committee so that credibility, equality, transparency, responsibility could have been ensured?
All right, you've made that point. I really have to move on. I'm going to try and bring in Sravasti back into the discussion. What would a third term for Modi mean for civil liberties, for human rights? In its 2022 report, Freedom House said that Prime Minister Modi and the BJP had presided over a, quote, rise in persecution affecting the Muslim population, harassment of journalists and non-governmental organizations. Are they right?
So an interesting part of what you have just mentioned is the fact that we've recently learned from reports, one report that was published in Al Jazeera itself, that the Indian government is working on its own indices of all of these things, for instance, freedom of speech and democracy rankings and all of that. So perhaps there will be an effort by the Indian government to put out its own rankings so that these rankings that are put out globally can be questioned in some form. And the Indian government has, under Prime Minister Modi, has contested all these rankings that have been put forward by international organizations, whether it's the VDEM report or the World Press Freedom ranking, which ranks India at around 162 out of 180 countries. So there has been an effort from the government to say that these figures and these indices are not putting out a very partial image of what India is, and there has been an effort which is part of the muscular foreign policy of this government, as we have seen. So we might see going ahead in the next 5 years that India puts out its own figures which show it in the light that they want to. But the fact is that we have seen a crushed dissent being crushed in the country in the past few years, and we have seen journalists being jailed. We have seen NGOs having their funding cut because of regulations under the FCRA, which regulates foreign funding. So these things have been happening. Press freedom is also under threat in India.
Right.
But
yeah, I just want to, because time is getting short, I want to give a chance to Mohan to come back in on some of these criticisms. They're coming from internationally recognized institutions, Mohan, like the Amnesty International report of January 24th, 2024, which condemned what it called the impunity of Indian authorities in discriminatory demolitions of Muslim properties. The government also caught the attention of the UN Human Rights Office, which condemned the 2019 Citizenship Amendment Act as fundamentally discriminatory. Your response to that?
What face Amnesty has got today in India? They have collided with the then Congress government and brought in the lot many foreign funds without paying the taxes, without following the law of the land, India's law. And now that they are talking about the human rights in the country, persecution of Muslims in the India,
Mohan, with all due respect, I think what international organizations are criticizing here, including the UN, is discriminatory measures that target what they see as targeting minorities over the Hindu majority. You're saying that they've got that all wrong.
Let me answer to that. UN has, this question has been raised by whom? This question has been raised by Pakistan, where they are standing in the world today. They are with the begging bowl. India is robustly growing. Economically,
so you're not suggesting the UN Human Rights Office is being manipulated by Pakistan, are you? You're not suggesting the UN Human Rights Office is being manipulated by Pakistan, are you?
I'm telling you, this question has been raised by the Pakistan and other Islamic ruled countries. See, we have a very good relationship with UAE. We have a very good relationship with UAE, and we have with Afghanistan.
All right, thank you, Mohan. Let's move on to economics. What's at stake for the economy, Sravasti? The BJP has seen great economic growth and transformation in the economy, hasn't it? I was looking at some figures between 2014 and 2022. India's GDP per capita rose by roughly 40% in 8 years. Is that what's driving its popularity?
I would say that we need to approach these figures with a little bit of caution because as my experience in reporting on the ground across the country has shown that there is huge resentment among the youth of the country due to unemployment and high inflation. But this is not to say that Modi's popularity has decreased in any way. I would like to reiterate that somehow for the people, Modi is separate from the issues that they are facing. So Modi's popularity remains intact, and the issues are born out of government failures, but that is not connected to Modi in any way. So wherever you go, you will ask the people what are the issues that you're facing, what are the issues that parties should be addressing in this election, and the first thing that they'll tell you is unemployment and inflation. But if you ask them that will you vote for Modi again, they'll say yes, perhaps yes. His popularity has not seen a dent, and a large part of this, of course, is the reason is that the drum beating that has been done around the figure of the Prime Minister, and people have been quite enamored, I would say, by his achievements, whether they are routine achievements or whether they are extraordinary achievements, whether it is, I'll just give you an example of hosting the G20 presidency in India, which happens by rotation to every country, but that has been portrayed in such a manner that the common man in the country today thinks that it's an unprecedented feat. And they do think that Modi has increased India's stature internationally, nationally as well. But unemployment and inflation and the concern of paper leaks, which is unique to India for recruitment to government jobs, which the BJP has also promised in its manifesto. In fact, in the previous parliament session, they brought in a law to stop paper leaks, and in their current election manifesto, they have promised to implement it. So there is some kind of acknowledgement that government recruitment is the problem. In the Congress manifesto, this unemployment and inflation is addressed. They have promised to provide 30 lakh government jobs, but this is a huge problem that is facing the economy, is something that people are talking about. So the Indian economy may have grown, but we know that from 2019, the NSSO data, which was the jobs data that was released just before the elections, and then after a few months after that, the government said that this data cannot be relied on. So if we just compare all of this, what's happening on the ground, what people are saying, the kind of distress they are facing.
Right. People are facing distress. I think you made that point. Mohan, I know, Arshpreet, you've got your hand up, but Mohan had his hand up. Mohan, I'll give you a quick opportunity to come back on some of those points which Sravasti is making there, that unemployment is still an issue. And I think some of the sectors like agriculture are suffering too. Go ahead, Mohan.
This mindset of certain people cannot be changed. The Moody's and the analysts in the world, they are saying India will robustly grow by 6.8 to 7% in the next 5 years, next year at least now, economic growth. If they are lying, then which numbers they will rely on, I cannot understand. Coming to the point of unemployment. Yes, this unemployment is not because of Modi has come to power in last 10 years. It is before that. Why they have not addressed? For that reason, the FDIs have increased in India. The ease of business has become very good for the people coming and investing in India. India is becoming a economic hub, global hub.
Okay,
And
you made
now
that point.
You can see in the third term of the Modi.
Let me give Arshpreet a chance to
factor
come
is
in on
taken
that.
care.
Arshpreet, does Mohan have a point when he says, actually, the IMF is predicting India's economy will grow at 6.5% in 2024? Why would Indians want to risk that and bank on this opposition alliance?
Well, it has nothing to do with the Bharatiya Janata Party's government. Had it been the government of the Congress Party, it would have been at 10%. It would have been at 11%. Back in the day when Mr. Mohan Singh used to lead the country, the best of the countries used to take...
Critics would say that's easy to claim, difficult to prove, though.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Let's talk of the LPG. Let's talk of... If I may. Number one, let's understand that when Mr. Manmohan Singh was leading the country, the world was battling with economic issues, but it was India that did not have to worry about it because we had Mr. Manmohan Singh, who has proven out to be one of the best leaders that we have in the world, who has proven out to be one of the best economists we have in the world. And number two, I want to clarify one more thing, that the Bharatiya Janata Party has recently launched a manifesto. I was expecting they would launch 2014's manifesto because anything and everything in 2014's manifesto has not been touched by them in the last 10 years. 2 crore jobs, undelivered, untouched. Doubling of farmers' income by 22, untouched, undelivered. We'll reduce the prices of diesel, petrol, dal, dahi, doodh, paneer. Nothing has been delivered. Number three.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing. That
Okay, I think you've made a number of points, Arshpreet. I'm really sorry, but we've got to allow a little bit of time to discuss some global issues of where India stands. I want to give that question to Sravasti and say, has the BJP also presided over a shift in India's foreign policy, away from its sort of historical, non-aligned, traditional stance towards a closer alliance with the US and with Israel?
I think we have seen quite a shift in India's foreign policy in the last 5 years, more than definitely in the 10 years, but in the last 5 years for sure. If you see India's stance during the Ukraine-Russia war, if you see how India has maintained its position during Israel and Palestine situation, everything has been, and the ongoing genocide in Gaza, it has, and also the fact that China's transgressions in India have been a point of contention for the opposition, and questions have been raised on that. But in terms of relations with Pakistan, India has taken a very aggressive approach, and even when the transgressions with China happened in Ladakh in June 2020, Prime Minister Modi gave out a very cohesive message saying that nobody has entered our territory and nobody will. But later, of course, we found out that many of our soldiers died. But I would say the evolution of India's foreign policy under Prime Minister Modi has become more aggressive, more nationalistic, and which is in line with his domestic politics as well.
Okay.
And a reflection of that is also being seen in his international politics and how India is seen globally. India does not want to be seen as a weak partner anymore. India wants to assert its voice, which is in a way to play to its domestic audience, to show that our
You've made that point. Let me bring in Mohan for a quick opportunity to come back on some of that. Do you agree with those? There are political forces within India, like the CPIM, which have called some of India's stances on the international stage vis-a-vis the war on Gaza as shameful. Do you agree that there's been a major transformation?
See, CPIM, Communist Party, has vanished throughout the world. Now that they are in scattered way, they are there in India, in some parts of the world. But their mindset will not change. We cannot do anything. The foreign policies, if you talk about last 10 years, I can give a simple example. If any war is happening in Ukraine, the way in which the Indians have been brought down back to India was swift. And the governments on the other side also, you take Ukraine, Israel, USA, UK, you take Germany, you take any country for that matter, including UAE. We have built a beautiful, relationship with the UAE also today. How is it possible? It's because of our approach.
Okay.
Basically, the approach of the Congress itself or the policy was wrong.
All right, let me bring in
you are
Arshpreet. You made that point. Let me bring in Arshpreet and ask this question. Has the opposition alliance got its unanimity on what its vision for foreign policy is? Because when you look at the Congress Party manifesto, a big focus on China. Congress leaders over the years have avoided being very critical of the warming ties with the US. When you look at the position and the manifesto of some of the Congress Party allies, like the CPIM, they focus on the opposite. They focus on what they call US imperialism and calls to end security and military ties with Israel. Is there consensus within the opposition alliance as to foreign policy?
Definitely, we have a consensus when it comes to our foreign policy, and we definitely wouldn't be doing blunders like the present government of the Bharatiya Janata Party has been doing. I'll give an example. This very government and the very spokesperson was talking about Pakistan and how it has been. But on the other hand, the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, he went to greet with his counterpart, the former Prime Minister, Mr. Sharif, in Pakistan, which was a part of a surprise visit. Had Kashmiri chai there, had biryani there, and then they make a U-turn on this stand. So I'd suggest the Bharatiya Janata Party at least give up their double standards in this debate. I'd urge that to the spokesperson. Number two, the Bharatiya Janata Party's government has time and again has not been able to protect the rights of the people of India. You see, the Bharatiya Janata Party's government, if we were to just talk of these 10 years, when Mr. Modi had not become the Prime Minister, he was the Chief Minister. He had promised that MSP should be given as a legal guarantee to the farmers of India. And after he became the Prime Minister, he did not deliver it.
All right, you've made that point, Arshpreet. I'm afraid we are running out of time. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, but we are out of time. And before we go, I do want to pose one final question to Mr. Mohan, and that is, will the BJP-led government allow Al Jazeera journalists, give Al Jazeera journalists visas to come cover the elections in India?
That depends on how you approach the country and through diplomats. And so far, we have not given chance to anybody right from the beginning of the independence. Now, if you ask for a special one, the law has to be amended. I think this election, it may not be possible. From the next election, as soon as the government comes to power, Mr. Modi takes over as the Prime Minister for the third term, you can approach through diplomatic way and take a solution to this.
All right, thank you very much. I think it's time to thank our guests for what's been a very spirited discussion. Mohan Krishna, Arshpreet Khadial and Sravasti Dasgupta. And thank you for watching too. You can see the show again anytime if you head over to our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, of course, you can go to our Facebook page. Let me give you the address, facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. Let's not forget you can join the conversation too on X. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Sami, Zeidan, and the whole team here in Doha. For now, it's goodbye.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.